Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. Good morning, everyone. It's getting warm out there. Time to move to Alaska. No kidding. Not in this state. Alrighty, so today we will continue exercise 4 of the 16 from the Anapanasati Sutta, which is what we've been going over for the past few weeks. But upon much reflection and meditation on the subject, I've decided to not continue with the remaining exercises of the Anapanasati Sutta. I'm going to stop at exercise 4 because ultimately the first 4 are the foundation of the practice of meditation. Over the past few weeks, because as I study and learn, right, I'm the type of person who takes notes. So I have like 20 of these books of notes since I've become a monk. But as I try to study and as I try to reflect for myself, right, since I'm a monk, I have to take things in and absorb them and contemplate them and learn them from a Buddhist philosophical point of view and psychological point of view and as a practice, right? There are some practices and teachings where we can, in a way, dumb them down, right, to take them away from the religious philosophical bits and pieces of it and really try to make it a little bit more mundane and useful for everyday life. So I was trying to do that with this discourse, but for me it became a little bit more difficult than I thought, only because this discourse leads to another discourse, and that discourse leads to 5 other discourses, right? And all these different teachings and levels of meditation, levels of enlightenment, levels of practice, all really come just from this one discourse. So if I go over this discourse and I go over those other teachings that are very beneficial, then that's a discount for you that you will not get, right, unless you learn on your own. And doing that can be fairly difficult because if you don't have the knowledge, background knowledge of Buddhist thought and philosophy and practice, it'll be pretty discouraging for you to try to learn all these other discourses. So, because we can spend years, literally, we can spend many years just going over this one discourse, and the Satipatthana discourse, which is the one that kind of precedes this one, the 4 foundations of mindfulness, right? That one comes after this, and from that it comes through the 37 factors of enlightenment, the 7 factors of enlightenment, the 5 powers, the 6 Bodhi trees, like all this just comes from here. And I try to make this class from the Buddhist point of view of how to meditate, but at the same time, a lot of people who aren't Buddhist or who don't really care about the Buddhist philosophy, this class may not convenience them, right? And I want to try to a lot of more other people, right? So I'm going to still add the Buddhist flavor to it, right? Because I have to. But at the same time, I do want to try to make things a little bit more relevant and a little bit more easier for people who don't necessarily have the time to meditate every single day or just don't care to, right? At least you can take some of these bits and pieces and apply it to when you're driving or when you're just walking or cleaning or something, right? So what we'll do after this class, I think the next class we will do a quick overview of the first 4 practices that we did, and then really what I'll try to focus after that is the different components of meditation. I think the next big topic will be the 5 hindrances of meditation, which whether you're Buddhist or not, unless you've overcome those hindrances, you can't meditate correctly. So I think that's going to be pretty beneficial for everyone. It's a pretty big topic, so of course we'll break it it down into several classes like we typically do. Once we've gone over those 5 hindrances, don't think that once we cover them that you're going to be gone of the 5 hindrances. I'm not even gone from like 2 of the hindrances, right? So it's a practice that we'll need to know. But as long as we know it and it's in the back of our minds, when we do practice meditation, we are aware of these hindrances, and so it'll be easier for us to find them, acknowledge them, and kind of move on. And then after the 5 hindrances, we'll go into, we'll kind of backtrack what we used to do before and go over a few different methods and techniques of meditation. This time around, we'll focus mainly on 3 types of meditation: meditation on the breath, walking meditation, and then mantra meditation. I think those are typically the most popular ones that we've gone through previously, and for most people that within my own experience and from other people's experience that they've told me, those 3 are the biggest most helpful ones for them versus the visualization meditation or mindfulness meditation or body scanning meditation, right? And then after we're done with those, we're going to concentrate on something called access concentration. Access concentration is the prerequisite state of mind that we need to be in order to actually fully engage in true meditation, right? So for our meditation to be true, to be correct, to be full and perfect, we need to enter a state of mind that most people typically call access meditation, which is a state of mind that is mostly distraction-free, is mostly thoughtless, it's mostly motionless. It's simply the perfect state of mind that you need to be in for true meditation practice, right? Not to say that we won't have any distractions or thoughts coming up. They will, but they'll be small and wispy and kind of in the background and not really making a big deal of it, right? So that's going to be our ultimate goal, is to get to that point. And because that was really my main goal, because typically for like our retreats, right? Whenever we had the meditation retreat, last time I did them, I don't know, did we have 1 or 2? 2 meditation retreats, right? Because we only did the retreat after we got to a certain point in our practice where we know enough to do enough, right? And so that's pretty much what I kind of want to do again this time around. And so getting to that point of access concentration is my ultimate goal for everyone. And so as I practice the Anapanasati myself, I don't believe it's the best way for everyday people, lay people, to get to that point. So I'm going to break it up, stop at step 4, give you some more solid techniques to help you get to that access concentration point. Sound good? Okay. So as usual, I'll recite the 16 practices. This time I'll just recite the first 4, since that is where we're stopping at. And then from there, we will finish our last class on the 4th exercise. Okay. So the 4 exercises. First one is breathing in a long breath. I know I am breathing in a long breath. Breathing out a short breath. I know I am breathing out a short breath. Breathing in a short breath. I know I am breathing in a short breath. Breathing out a short breath. I know I am breathing out a short breath. Breathing in, I'm aware of my whole body. Breathing out, I'm aware of my whole body. Breathing in, I calm my whole body. Breathing out, I calm my whole body. So as we've gone over these first 3 exercises, we've gotten to the point, hopefully, where, the first 2 exercises we've said that this isn't necessarily you controlling your breath to breathe in long and to breathe in short. You are simply just being aware of how your breathing is, right? So we've mentioned that, take an example from after you've done some physical activity, maybe you've exercised, maybe you're sort of cleaning. Typically your body heats up, right? You're breathing more, you're breathing heavier. So that's the type of change you want to see within your body, right? So if you just come in and sit down, your breath is going to be your breath is not going to be balanced, right? Because you've been walking, you've sat down, right? Walking is, even though it's just walking, it's still physical activity. It's still going to change the natural flow and balance of your breathing. Very slightly, but it does change, right? So sometimes when we sit down, the first thing we do is we take a big sigh, right? We take a deep breath, like, I've sat down. That's the change in breathing, right? And sometimes when we are sitting and we're trying to meditate and a thought arises that causes us to be angry or to be anxious, or we're just remembering a bad memory, what tends to happen is now our body changes. Now our body tenses up because we're angry, right? Our breathing is shallow or heavier because now we're trying to fight the habit of cursing out loud or just whatever it may be, right? So these subtle changes is what we really need to be paying attention to during our meditation. Every little thing can cause a change, whether it's a change in body movement, it's a change in breathing, it's a change in posture. Any subtle change, whether it's within you or outside of you, pay attention to, right? Just be aware of those changes. Be aware and notice the sounds. Luckily, right now, it's pretty quiet in here, right? Sometimes we'll hear the peacocks, maybe we'll hear some dogs, right? So these are also changes that we want to be aware of. Don't engage in, right? So if you hear the sound, just simply label it. Give it a quick label, whether it's sound or peacock or dog or airplane or a phone ringing or someone coughing. Just be aware and be mindful of just what it is, right? So give it that quick label. Usually the first thing that comes to mind is the most correct label. Don't try to overthink it. Don't try to come up with the most perfect label. It doesn't exist. First thing that pops into your mind when you hear something, give it that quick label and move on. And the same thing when we notice changes in our body, right? So if you feel some discomfort or some pain or whatever it may be, right? Give it that quick label. Acknowledge that the pain is there, right? So if you need to move, for instance, right, you need to readjust your posture or just change your posture, be mindful of the intention of wanting to change or wanting to move, right? So before you do it, bring to mind that I need to change my posture, I need to adjust, or I need to move, right? And then do it slowly and mindfully so that you're aware of what you're doing, right? So as we get into this habit of being aware of everything that happens, that everything that comes into our mind, all these subtle changes, right? It helps us kind of get to know our mind, how we think, right? Because typically we're just like, oh, I'm a person that works and I think this way, I think I'm a good person, or whatever, right? We all think everyone thinks they're a saint, right? Until someone else points it out that they're not, or whatever may happen, right? So you may think that you're a good person, but if we really start becoming mindful of how we're thinking and how we are perceiving things, right, then we can typically see some of those not unsaintly things or aspects and characteristics about ourselves, right? The point of being mindful, the point of getting to know yourself is so that when you are thinking, right, if you're in meditation and you become distracted, what we want to do is to watch our thinking, right? Watching our thinking is very difficult. I've mentioned this before, right? We typically, at first, you just want to be mindful that you're being distracted, right? So if you've got a distraction in your mind, it's quick to notice, oh, I got distracted, let me go back to my meditation, right? Or you hear a sound, the door opening, don't entertain it. Who's there? Why are they late? Why are they early? Why are they walking? Why are they stomping their feet as they're walking? We're giving the story of whoever walked into the door before we even know who and why they walked in the door. So we don't want to give that story. We just want to say door opened, door closed, right? And forget about the rest. We don't care. You're going to figure out who it is later. You're going to know who it is. You're going to know why they came late or came early. You're going to know their story afterward. So worry about it afterward. But right now, only worry about the sound, door open, the door closed, breathing in, breathing out, dog barking, chickening, right? Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. Door open again, door closed again. Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. The phone went off. Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, right? So you're meditating on your meditation object, you're breathing, whatever. Distraction happens, you note it, you go back to your meditation. Distraction happens, you note it, you go back to your meditation. You're literally just going back and forth, right? And it may seem a lot, because it is a lot, right? We have millions of years of evolution of humans thinking, right? It's not like you can just turn off. You can't turn it off. What we can do is slow it down, right? What we can do is control the way we're thinking, control the thinking process itself, right? So after a while, after we learn to start watching our thinking, which is a difficult part, right? Because what you're trying to do is essentially split your mind into two. One side where you're just watching the thinking, and the other side is doing the actual thinking, right? So as you're watching the thinking, you're watching how your mind processes things. You're watching how your mind discriminates. You're watching how your mind is biased towards a certain person or a certain place. You're watching how you think about certain people, for instance, right? Last class I gave the example of, let's say you hate a coworker. There's one coworker you just don't like, right? They give you the first bad impression. You don't even remember why ever since then you just don't like them, right? And now your boss wants to fire them and they don't know how to, so they give you the power to fire them. And you're like, oh, heck yeah, I'm going to fire them 100%, right? The only reason you're agreeing to fire them without really thinking about it is because you don't like the person. But in reality, that person is one of the best workers in the office. They are always on time, they do their work, they go above and beyond, they're the typical good worker, right? But because we don't like them, we're not taking that information into consideration. We're simply just firing them because we don't like them, right? But if we become mindful of our own thought process, if we get to know our own mind, then we can think through things logically, right, correctly, and really pinpoint some of those reasons why we don't like them, right? Maybe we have to kind of backtrack a little bit and figure out what they may have done or said the first time we met them to figure out what that first bad impression was, right? So as we do that through normal things, right? If you're being mindful as you're cleaning, for instance, or you're driving, right, and something happens and, right, let's just driving, because I always everyone knows I'm a speed demon on the road, right? Say what? And in my car. So when if you're driving, if anybody's driving and someone cuts you off, our first normal reaction is to flip them off, cuss them out, right? Or if we're even feeling a little race car-y that day, we'll speed up and cut them off too, right? But why are we cutting them off? Why does it matter that they cut us off, right? So if we think about it, what will then hopefully come to mind is, I'm angry that they cut them off because I think I'm better than they are. my time is worth more than their time, right? I have a nicer car, they shouldn't be daring to cut me off because my car is 10 times worth what theirs are, right? Who's cutting me off? Whatever it may be, right? We're labeling things because we're thinking that person is a horrible person and we're better than they are. But that's not the case. We don't know who they are. We don't know what they're going through, right? We're assuming and we're giving them their story based on the discrimination and bias that we have, right? Maybe they're rushing to the hospital. Their pregnant wife could be in the back seat screaming and sticking her legs out, trying to hold the baby in before they get to the hospital. Someone could be in trouble. Something can happen, right? We don't know. But we make a story to make us feel better for cussing them out or going in and cutting them off too, right? So in order to avoid that, we need to think rationally, right? I know it's difficult to do sometimes because we're driving, we're in a hurry, we're trying to get somewhere, time is precious, whatever. But really, if we stop and think about it and we acknowledge, okay, that person cut me off. Did anything change in my life? Am I all of a sudden a millionaire? Am I poor? Did I lose my job? Did 5 children pop up out of nowhere that I don't know of because they cut me off? I don't know. We don't know. We don't care, right? And that's really what we need to start doing is, okay, let them cut me off. It's okay. It's fine. Whatever, right? Because then if we don't just let it go, now we're resentful, we're in a bad mood because someone cut us off, right? And we're going to try to go to work. Now you're in a bad mood, you're pissy, you go to work in that bad mood and pissiness, and now your coworkers are trying to talk to you, they're trying to say good morning, and you're like, F this morning. I'm already in a bad mood, right? The day hasn't even started and you're already ruined the entire day for yourself and everyone around you. What's the point there? How saintly are you now? And that's really why mindfulness is a big topic in Buddhism. Even though the Buddha himself didn't really emphasize mindfulness as much as we do nowadays in our time, because now we have so much more to be unmindful of. Mindfulness itself has to be pretty important. But in the time of the Buddha, the word mindfulness really didn't exist much beyond the Anapanasati Sutta and the Satipatthana Sutra. Sati means mindfulness, right? So there are very few actual discourses on mindfulness because mindfulness itself is part of, or the practice of mindfulness or contemplation was part of any discourse that the Buddha taught his disciples, right? So if he taught you the Four Noble Truths, ingrained within the Four Noble Truths is you being mindful of the Four Noble Truths, right? So he didn't really have to emphasize or teach mindfulness because it's like you're already going to meditate and contemplate on it anyway, which is mindfulness. Why am I teaching you how to be mindfulness? It's already there, right? But nowadays, where we're just bombarded with technology, with social media, with inventions coming out every day to better our lives or ease our lives, and everything else, right? So we have more to really be unmindful of. So mindfulness now becomes a pretty important topic for people. I am so off topic. So, as usual, I haven't even discussed the exercise for today. So anyway, as I was trying to say, right, the first two exercises really what is reminding us to be mindful of our breathing, how our breathing is, right? Breathing long, short, is it coarse, is it soft, is it smooth, blah, 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 right? Whatever it is, be mindful of the subtle changes. And in the third exercise, we are being aware of our whole body, right? Like I mentioned earlier, as you get angry or you get anxious, right, or uncomfortable, your body starts tensing up, right? You start slouching a little bit or whatever it may be, right? So as those changes happen too, you want to be mindful of the changes in your body. And also, what it's also emphasizing is if your body is uncomfortable, then your breathing is going to be uncomfortable, right? Because if you're in pain or if you're tensing up because you're angry, now your breathing is heavy, it's short, you're huffing and puffing, right? So your body interacts, is connected and balances out your breathing, and your breathing helps balance out and calm your body. So if you are, let's say if you just came back from a run, right? Your body's exhausted, you're breathing heavy because you're trying to like compensate and catch up with your breathing, right? But as you sit down, you rest and relax your body, and you take a few deep breaths and kind of get it back normalized. Now your body is calming down and your breathing is calming down. So it's the same way with our meditation. So if we're constantly thinking, being distracted and angry or whatever it may be, that's going to change our breathing. So if we're able to calm and settle down our breathing, then our mind and body is going to settle down and calm with it, right? So it goes hand in hand. So if you notice your body is uncomfortable or moving or changing, then also be aware of the changes in your breathing, because that's going to change too, right? Because if you're sitting upright for a while, right, and then you start slouching, as soon as if you become mindful of the slouch and you correct yourself, there's going to be a breathing change, right? Because you went from constricting a little bit of your lungs to allowing them to be fully expanded. So there's a change in the balance of breathing. So we may not notice it, but it's very subtle, right? And over time, as we practice more and become more mindful, we'll notice these very, very subtle changes. And that's really what we want to happen, or want to happen, is to be able to notice all those tiny little subtle changes. And as you notice them, and as you've corrected them and become mindful of them, then that brings us to the fourth exercise, which is breathe in, I calm my whole body. Breathing out, I calm my whole body. So now that you're aware of the changes in your mind, of the distractions in your mind, you've noticed a change in your body, you've calmed your body, you've calmed your mind, now you can take some breathing, now you can breathe in and out calmly and mindfully. Now your whole body is settled back, right? So there's also a type of reoccurrence here, right? So now let's say you've become mindful of your breathing. It's settled, it's calm, it's good to go. Next is your body. Your body is calm, it's comfortable, it's settled, it's good to go. So now everything is settled, everything's in balance. Mind and body is in balance. Right? So you're good. All of a sudden distraction happens, right? Food comes up, or maybe you haven't had breakfast yet, so you're hungry, you're thinking what you want to eat or go afterward. So now there's that distraction, you're entertaining that thought, right? So now you went from a perfect meditation pose, now you're slouching a little bit, now you're like, oh wait, do I want donuts, do I want coffee, right? You're like daydreaming. And so after a while, that's gonna change that balancedness that you had to not being very mindful or meditative or in balance, right? So hopefully you don't entertain that thought too long, that you've noticed it. I'll give you like a minute or two, right? Before you're like, oh wait, I'm meditating. Let me go back to my meditation, right? So as you make that click, as you go back to your pose, there's going to be an imbalance in body and mind again. So you have to bring it all back together again, right? So there's going to be a constant going back and forth, which is okay, right? I've always mentioned it's okay to become distracted. It's okay to think. It's just not okay to entertain those distractions and continue with the thinking process, right? Whether you've noticed a change or the distraction immediately, or after a few seconds, or after a few minutes, it doesn't matter. As long as you have become aware of the distraction that's happening and you go back to your meditation object, that is an accomplishment, right? A lot of people get discouraged because they're like, I just can't stop thinking. It's constant. It's just there. I'm like, it's okay to think, right? Again, this is millions of years of human evolution where we're just trained to think, constant thinking, right? So it's not like it's going to go away. It doesn't go away. It will just eventually slow down or get to a point where, again, it's just wispy and just kind of sitting in the background. It's not really distracting you. It's there, you acknowledge it, and it'll go away, right? That's the ultimate goal. It may take months, it may take years, it may not ever happen at all, but you're still bettering yourself. You're still training your mind, right? So as you train your mind, you're able to take this out into the world. And as you're driving, you're able to become more mindful. You're more open-minded to people cutting off, right? Maybe, I don't know. When you're cleaning, you're mindful of your cleaning, right? If you're cleaning mindfully and with awareness, then you clean much better. You'll clean cleaner. I don't know, right? Or if you're cooking, you're mindful and you're being aware of how you're cooking, what you're cooking, how long you're cooking it for. Then you end up making a really good dish, right? Otherwise, if you're distracted, if you're multitasking, the stove is burning, the water's overflowing, kids are screaming, I don't know, right? A world war can happen in the background and you're not even aware of it. So, being mindful helps you outside of meditation. And that's really what people need to understand, that meditation isn't just sitting, right? Meditation is when you walk to your car, walk with mindfulness to your car, right? It's a nice walk there. So just be mindful of the walking, right? Be mindful. And for the next few classes, as we go over walking meditation again and practice it together, right? You want to be aware of how your foot feels, right? To a point of how your foot feels as it's touching the ground, as it's leaving the ground, right? Being aware of the things that you're walking on, whether it's the concrete or it's the grass or it's sand or dirt, whatever it may be, right? You're aware of the different textures. And so it allows you to take in more. It allows you to absorb more of your natural surrounding and be mindful of the things around you. So you're able to appreciate, hopefully, the world a little bit more, right? Because if you come and go routinely, automatically, you may forget that we put up a new statue outside. You may not even realize the new statue's there. You may not realize the 10,000 flowers we just planted. None of that's true, but I'm just saying, if it were, you would not notice it because you're not being mindful of things. You're just coming and going. You're coming and going. And same thing with the work, right? Sometimes some of our work is so routine and automatic that we just do it and we don't even think of it, right? We don't even think about it. It's just so routine, and because it's so routine, you're not really thinking and being mindful. Mistakes are easily made, right? In my previous job, when I used to work with Minona, we didn't do the same job, but we worked in the same department. But anyway, my job there and all my colleagues' jobs was literally just, it was almost like flipping a page and stamping. Like, it was that kind of routine. It was so routine. It really wasn't, right? You really had to do some research and processing things and really analyze the work, right? I was an analyst. Like, that was part of my job. You have to analyze the work. But the analyzing was so routine that you would just flip through things and flip through the computer pages and tabs and do your work, and you'd get like 20 files done, and you're like, I don't even remember touching one of these files because it's so routine, right? A lot of right, exactly. You drive a million miles. Exactly, right? You got to point A and point B, and you're like, how do I even? Yeah. Yes.
Mindless versus mindful, right? So I've read that anything can become a meditation, like cleaning, washing your dog, brushing your teeth.
Right.
Right, and because you're trying to drop into a certain state. So if you're saying you have to be mindful, isn't it contradicting that you can be
Kind of, but it just sounds like you asked the same thing. I don't know, Leon?
It's not like we're saying that meditation is not thinking, right? We still think, but the human mind, as you said, over millions of years of evolution is geared to just think all the time, even if there's no sensory input. The brain
Right.
wants to keep creating.
Right.
That's not always useful, correct? So what we're trying to say is try to let that stuff go away, because it's all abstract. Anything our brain conjures up is an abstraction,
Right.
right?
Right. And when I say like state of mind, and I think people have a misconception of when they read stuff on meditation, or at least higher levels of meditation or states of consciousness, right? You read these words and you read things like levels of meditation or higher levels of consciousness or being or blah, 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 right? Because we don't exactly know what that is, right? Personally, or I mean like from our own experience, unless you've experienced it, you don't know what it's trying to compare it to, right? So if you're trying to compare states of mind, a higher state of mind to mindfulness, but you don't know one or the other, then you can't say yes or no, it's the same or not the same, or if it's contradictory, it's not contradictory. But a state of mind, in Buddhism, for instance, right, a higher state of mind is what? Is awareness, it's awareness, complete awareness. So it's complete awareness of where you are, what you're doing, what you're thinking, right? You're still going to think. You can't completely shut it off. But again, like I said, like getting to access concentration is a higher state of mind. You will hopefully achieve that level, right? Where you think you're not thinking, but because you're so concentrated, right? You think you're not thinking, but you are thinking. Again, it's just wispy and they're small and they're short and they're in the background. They're not really bothering you. They're there. They're not here. They're here.
Would you consider that to be a non-dual state then, where we're not judging, we're not us and them, we're not black and white?
Right.
It's before our mind creates those differences, right?
Right.
It's the pure state before our mind gets in it.
Right. Right. Because our mind is naturally dualistic, right? If we're thinking, we're like, oh, it's bad meditation. If we're not thinking, it's a good meditation. Right. Right. So getting to that state of mind or access concentration is not thinking dualistically. You're not thinking. You're not attaching yourself to the thoughts or the distractions. You're not engaging them. You say, "This is not mine." It's just there. Does that make sense? Does that kind of answer your question?
Some of it,
You want to reiterate your question a little bit more?
well, it's more so like, this hasn't happened lately, but it used to be that I could like, say for example, I'll be jumping rope. Beginning of the jump rope, I'll be thinking about my form, the cars passing by, the birds chirping. But eventually, I can get to a state where it is as if I'm just observing myself, like I'm just mounting my breath, breathing, like everything is, the birds still chirping, the cars still, but I'm not giving them any energy, right?
Right, you're in the zone.
Yeah, so sometimes, and that's me thinking, I need to get back to that in meditation, if I can get to that, right? But then when you say mindful, I have to think about what I'm doing. That's what I mean when I'm saying like, to me, when I get to the point where I'm observing myself, that's me being mindless. Meaning I'm not thinking about the other distractions out there. Like I know that they're there, I'm just not giving
Yeah.
energy, right? But then when I'm mindful, I'm giving the thought energy. Like when I'm doing a walking meditation, my right foot, the heel of my right foot is off the ground.
Yeah.
Whatever you're doing, you're 100% concentrating on that. You're not getting distracted. So if you're meditating, it's like you're concentrating on breathe and all those factors. But when you're driving, let's say, you're focusing on your driving, that's the meditation. Or you're working, like reviewing your reports or doing something, you're 100% concentrating on that particular thing, not getting distracted by other things. So that's
See, the word mindfulness is not really a good word. Because mindfulness is like your mind is full, right? Your mind is full. My mind's not full. How does mindfulness, the word is supposed to say, be aware of nothing, means mind is full, right? You know what I mean? Like the word mindful is not good. It's not a correct Buddhist term. It's one of the closest words that we can translate from the word sati or samadhi, right? Like these are like, or ikagata. Ikagata is a Pali word that means one-pointedness, which is the real, probably a better word to use than mindfulness, because you are one-pointing your meditation on your meditation object, right? Which is breathing, chanting, walking, whatever it may be, right? So as you're pointing this one object, all the other things kind of like come to that one point. They're not coming to your mind, they're coming to the one point of meditation, right? Like think if you're like getting a magnifying glass and you're in the sun and you're pointing the sun to this one object here to like flame it, right? But if there are things in the way of the sun, then it's not going to do anything, right? And that's where our distractions kind of tend. They come in the way of our meditation. They really need to go to that one point instead. Does that kind of make sense? Not being centered, but go ahead, Leon, while I like rethink my thought process.
So I was reading some physiology stuff because I'm kind of into the science of it. And there's a structure at the bottom of your brain. It's the most primitive part of your brain. It's next to the amygdala, which is your source of. That's where fear is created for ultimate fight or flight survival. It's before anything gets abstracted and processed in your brain. There's a thing called the thalamus. And the thalamus is where all of your sensory information from your nerves on your skin, your ears, your eyes, smell, all that comes there first, and then it gets processed out through to the brain. So what helps me sometimes is to say, if I'm caught in a thought, okay, so let's back up a little bit. Let's get off of this abstract path I'm on to say, what is this now? Maybe is it? And just remember. It helps me remember that the sensations come in unprocessed completely. They're just vibrations, right? They're heat, they're sound, they're light, and that so it's kind of like that's all coming in our focus. We're trying to maybe be where that's happening. So it's kind of like you're saying, we hear that sound coming in, but we're not passing it on to the brain to go, oh, it's a dog, a big dog. I wonder if he's mad. Is he chasing a car? What color is the car? Your mind just goes.
Right.
Takes off. So that's I don't know if that's too nerdy, but it just kind of helps me to think about the fact that physiologically we interpret sensory stimulation, this information that comes in, that's processed in part of our brain before it gets to the upper elements.
Right.
So you don't deal with narrative. This goes back to when you talk about when people think that you don't think about anything when you're meditating, but you are. It's just one focus, like the breath thing.
Right.
It's getting you into a zone where you're not you're not creating narrative things.
Right.
So that's enlisting our mind in service of our concentration, right? As opposed to letting the mind wander. So if I'm sitting on a cushion, everything's fine, and all of a sudden I'm distracted by a thought, and I catch the fact I'm distracted by a thought. That's a good process of my mind, right? Because my mind, the thinking part of my mind is going, I just caught you going off. This is what our mind is supposed
Right.
to do, right? It's supposed to serve us and not be our master. So I think, it's not like you say, it's not getting rid of your mind. It's just stopping and trying to stop the normal processes that are in the brain so a new process, so we can realize a new way of thinking,
Right.
being present.
You are aware of what you are doing at the moment. That's crazy. Like you are always aware of what you are
And it's not good, especially people who are like new to meditation are going to naturally be very self-critical and assume that their meditation is incorrect, right? Which can be sometimes, right? It's important to, yes, you need to do research and read about meditation, right? From books or from videos, but a true meditation practice needs to be done with a community, right? Like here. That way we can talk amongst each other and figure out what we're each doing wrong, right? Or having some sort of mentor or teacher to help guide. Because unless someone's reaffirming that your distractions are not a bad thing, you're going to continue to think that distraction is a bad thing, and you're going to think that you're not doing it wrong. Now you're discouraged, and you stop the practice completely, right? I've seen so many people that's happened to, because they get discouraged, right? They're assuming that because they're thinking so much, or they can't sit and concentrate, that they're doing the meditation wrong, right? You're not. It's just not that easy to stop thinking, obviously, right? And you have to remember that our mind is obsessed with time, right? I think I mentioned this before. It's obsessed with past. It's obsessed with the past and the future, right? So whenever you're thinking, you're typically thinking about what had already happened, or you're imagining something to happen in the future, right? That's it. That's the only everything you're ever thinking about. You're never thinking about just now. You never are, because your mind doesn't want to. That's how our mind controls us and controls our behavior and controls our perspectives and all those other things, right? That's why we don't like this one coworker, because in the past something happened, and now for the rest of your life you don't like them anymore. But if you just stop and see how they are working now, you'll acknowledge and hopefully come to terms to say that yes, they're a good worker, they do their job correctly, they know what they're doing. They're not this horrible person that I think they are, right? But because our mind's like, no, just stay and stick to hating them because it's easier, right? That's what our mind does. Like we want to continue to hate something or don't like something or to continue to love something that we shouldn't because our mind's obsessed and saying, no, just do it. It's the easier way of things. It's really not. It's just your mind is lazy, usually. Or your mind's obsessed with a certain feeling of comfort or discomfort or just fear of something, right? It's fear of something. Our mind is always fearful because we have stories and we make up ideas and we make up these scenarios that this could happen if this happened, or this may not happen because I did this, or whatever it may be, right? So in order to stop living in the past and the future, we need to be mindful of the present. Okay, I'm going to stop there because I've overspoken as usual. But that's the gist of it, of the 4 practices. I hope that made sense. I know probably didn't make much sense to you because you missed a couple classes, but feel free to watch our previous classes so you know what I'm talking about. That makes sense. And I think it's very helpful for you. I think it's very, at least if you start from where we restarted again, I think you're only like 4 classes behind, right? 4 discussions behind. So for anyone who's missed any prior class or or feels lost from today, because I feel a little bit lost because we went off topic so much, but do watch the previous classes on the 1st through 3rd exercises to whether you just need a refresher or you've missed class, to go through that to really help give you that foundation of where we need to be at going forward. Yes, Leon?
People can ask questions to you on that forum as well, where you post the videos. Is there a place that they can ask you questions?
Correct. So all our videos are on Facebook and YouTube. So if anybody has any questions about that class specifically, feel free to drop us a comment on that video or just send us an email anywhere. I'll be more than happy to answer those questions. And then going forward, going forward, we will concentrate on, next class we'll do a quick overview of the 4 exercises, and then starting class in June, we'll start going over the 3 methods of meditation that we'll focus on for the rest of the year, which is breathing, walking, and mantra meditations. And then we'll go through those for a couple of months, and then we will heavily focus on perfecting our concentration in order to get to that access concentration mindset. And then from there, after a few classes of that, we'll probably do a retreat. I'm hoping by then the apocalypse has slowed down to a point where we can do it. But we will wait at least till October, November for a potential retreat. So it'll give us some time. Okay, so we have like 15 minutes to meditate. Less time than we usually do. Any other questions, concerns, emotional outbursts that I don't want to hear? We all know that already. No? Okay. We'll get into position. We'll meditate for at least 15 minutes for the rest of the class. Stretch out a little bit if you need to. Move side to side. Get into position. Let's recall mindfulness. Any subtle movement, changes. If you have to adjust yourself, just be mindful of it before and as you're doing it. back. Y'all went to like another realm of existence too, right? Or is it just me? Okay. Just me trying to escape this world. Kidding. Sort of. Anyway. Okay. Well, that concludes our fourth exercise of the 16. Any final questions, comments? Emotional outbursts. Yeah. Okay. Well, then that we will finish there. I also wanted to announce that on Sunday, May 23rd, we are celebrating Vesak Day, which is one of our biggest and most important holidays of the year. So that will be on the 23rd, Sunday. It's going to be at 10 a.m. And we hope that everyone will join us, or will be able to join us. Okay? Namo Shakyamuni Buddha.